Sorry, y'all. Sorry, I was just dancing there because I totally dig that song. I'm Juliette Miranda, and this is Bourbon Soak Live, where for the next, I don't know, 30, 40, 60 minutes, who knows, we're going to hang out and share our favorite stories. And our topic tonight is weed. But first,
Weed.
yeah, weed. Oh, and speaking of that handsome, sexy voice behind the microphone there is my producer, David.
Hello, happy Monday.
David, the producer there, is going to be manning the chat for us and making sure I stay on track and I don't nod off because I got a little secret to share with y'all. I am on 3 different kinds of cold medicine and bourbon right now.
Excuses.
Speaking of the bourbon, tonight I am drinking Old Forester 1920. It's a 115 proof bourbon. It is delightful. I mean, really, really good. It's a high corn bourbon. I think it's like 72%. It's been aged. It doesn't have an age statement, but I'm guessing it's been aged about 5 years or so. And oh, y'all, this stuff is so good. So I don't know what you're drinking. Water, bourbon, smoking weed, maybe. Have at it. But what do you say, y'all? Let's say cheers.
Cheers to you.
Oh, that is better. All right. So I see my favorite bestie Ginger is in the chat, and oh, we've got Container Man here too, and Geraldine Pippa. Hey, it's great to see y'all here. How's everybody doing tonight?
It's an awesome Monday.
It is an awesome Monday. It's pouring rain here, by the way. It's
One, if it wasn't raining, and 2, if you weren't sick.
Yeah, I am definitely not at my best tonight, but I am rallying because seriously, weed. I have a history with weed, and it's not an especially good one, I'm afraid. Let me just put this out here right now. I really do love weed. I do, but it doesn't really love me. So these are the stories I'm going to be telling y'all tonight. It's kind of my shameful story and histories with weed, but I also want to hear yours too. So be sure in the comments to share your stories and we can talk about them and laugh about our crazy experiences. And I'm seeing more people calling in here. We got Video Call-In Show, Rob Random, UK Stoner, very nice. I like to hear that.
There you go.
Woo!
Right up your alley.
I know, right? I want to start off by talking about my very first encounter with weed. And this was back in, I want to say the very early 90s. There was a rock star who lived not too far from my home. And I mean, this is a legit rock star. He, at the time, had 2 hit albums out and was just about to release his 3rd. We're talking singles all over the radio and MTV. And I kind of endeared myself to him at a concert because I wanted to interview him. So he was one of my very first interviews, and he actually became kind of a friend of the family in a way. And it was kind of funny the way that he got introduced to the family because, you know, I was trying to get this interview with him, and he said, well, why don't I just come on by and we can do it in person? And I'm like, yes, I want a rock star in my home. Please, this is perfect. And I'm a teenager, by the way. And he's like, okay, cool. Well, where do you live? I'll be over there in 20 minutes. And I had a little bit of a problem there because my parents were not home. And we had a very, very strict rule, no boys in the house. And by proxy, that also means no old men or rock stars in the house when my parents aren't home.
Sounds like a good rule to have.
So I kind of had to, and I didn't want to miss out on my opportunity for an interview with this guy because it would really just be a huge thing for a teenager. I mean, this would be something that would eventually go on to be published in a couple of magazines and the newspaper. And I mean, it was a huge starting point for me. And to this day, I will always be grateful that he kind of took a shine to me and, you know, gave me that break. But to do that, I had to kind of finagle him into my home while my parents weren't there. And I came up with this grand plan to have him hang out in the backyard with me until my parents did come home. And when they did, you know, my mom let me complete the interview and everything. And we were all hanging out afterwards. And he lights up a joint, just casually, like it's a cigarette, pulls it out of his pocket, starts smoking it. And my mom she's trying real hard to be cool. My mother is a brilliant, lovely woman, but there are certain things that test your patience levels as a parent. And I had already pushed those to the brink by having a rock star in the house, greeting her when she comes home from shopping. And I mean, that's a hell of a thing to do to a mom, right? But then to be like, all right, well, this guy is sitting here in my backyard and he's just smoking a joint like it's nothing. And I was enamored. I really was. I loved every bit of it. I loved the smell of it. I loved the way he looked doing it. And I loved the fact that my mother pulled me aside afterwards and said, don't you do that. Because that is always the way that it rolls. The second you're told not to do something, you want to do it bad.
As a teenager, absolutely. That's the
Yeah.
first thing you do.
I see we've got tons of chat going on in here. Who are we looking at?
Northern Ohio stopped in. Nora.
Oh, sweet. Hi.
Tim Lambert stopped in. And then
Oh.
Rob Random wanted to know, was it weed or hash?
Oh, I'm going to make the assumption that it was weed. I never asked. But knowing him and the relationship that we developed over the years, he was always smoking weed. It was very specific to him. That was his thing. So I can't imagine it would have been hash.
And Bashful just joined.
Oh, sweet. Hey, Bashful, how's it going? And I see Ginger has a comment here. She says, I watched a guy in high school make a bong off a 5 o'clock vodka bottle. How do you do that?
Well, you can make a bong out of a bottle real easy.
How do you make a bong out of a bottle?
You basically, forge a hole through it.
How do you put a hole in a bottle?
Oh.
Oh.
You're asking a guy who has no idea how to make holes in bottles.
I have no clue. I see that Rob says weed smells much nicer than hash. And I got to say, I love the smell of weed. I do.
See, Rob, I love the smell of hash. And I haven't done that since high school.
Yeah, I haven't. I've only done hash like once or twice. But weed, I'm a very tactile person and I like the experience of things. So I've always enjoyed the experience of, getting the buds and kind of, crushing them up and roll them up in paper and everything. It just smells good. I like the feel of it. It's the same reason I like books. I like the feel of them on my fingers. I like breaking the spine. I like the smell.
Tactile.
All about getting my hands on things.
Ginger explained it to us, and, we just assumed a totally different thing.
Oh, it was a plastic bottle.
That makes more sense.
Oh, duh. Yeah, I am a moron.
Oh, no, we thought, how do you drill into glass?
I know, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, well, you would crack it, right? Although, speaking of glass, I am addicted to this show on Netflix that I just discovered. It's this glass blowing competition. It's beautiful and crazy, and I'm obsessed with it. But
do you remember the name of it? Is it Blown Away
it's
or
like
something?
Blown Away, I
Yeah,
think.
I think it is.
And the challenge that I just watched, they were making decanters and glasses that had to be functional. And one guy made a decanter and glass that was specifically for absinthe. And it was just beautiful. The glass had a dripper built into it. It was gorgeous. And as somebody who loves absinthe, I was a little jelly of it. It was just spectacular.
Yeah, and Container Man says he never inhaled.
I don't believe a word of that. Those are lies.
We just had Nancy join us.
Well, hello, Nancy Jones. How's it going, lady? Very happy to have you here. We are sharing our stories about weed. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'm not a hip kind of gal. So if there is another word I should be using instead of weed,
Yeah, you're a little off the
I know, I'm an
topic
old
there.
lady. I've seen way too many Cheech and Chong movies. So, it's a wonder I'm not calling it Mary Jane.
Right.
So if I'm using the word incorrectly, please let me know, because I'm not an expert. I don't know this the way I know bourbon. I just know that I smoke it and it does horrible things to me.
You see Nancy's story?
Nancy says, I never got into weed growing up, but thought I would stop in to say hello to you. So hello from the number one troublemaker.
Exactly. She is a problem.
Well, it's funny. It took me a while before I actually started smoking it. I mean, it was around me all the time. I had that guy, that rock star in my home smoking it. And every time he would come over after that, I mean, he would come over and hang out at least once a month when he wasn't on the road. And he'd always light up, and it was just his thing. But I never started smoking it until I moved to Los Angeles and I was dating a guy who was a big, big stoner. It was just, I think he treated it a little bit too much like a medicinal thing. He was probably smoking it when he should have been taking Prozac.
Well, there's that.
In fact, this guy was such a dickhead. I used to buy big jugs of St. John's wort, which is a homeopathic remedy for anxiety, and I would crumble it up and put it in his coffee.
I gotta start checking my drinks now. I don't know what you're putting in mine.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
But the one thing that we did really well together was smoke weed. He was smoking it all the time, and I finally broke down and I said, all right, how is it? What is it? How does it work? What's it going to do to me? And he said, well, why don't you just smoke some and find out? So I did, and I really, the first time I did it, I loved it. It was such a cool feeling. It wasn't like being drunk. It was just like being comfortable and giddy at the same time. And the more I smoked, the dumber I got. I quickly found out. Because
That'll happen.
what I came to discover was that if I'm going to smoke weed, I need to be camped out. I need to be set up in my home with no plans to go anywhere. Be surrounded by my friends because I get really twitchy. We decided we were going to walk across the street and go to Whole Foods to get snacks, and I couldn't handle it. All these people around me, like trying to pay for my food. I had a wad of singles in my pocket, and I was trying to pay for a bag of chips and a bottle of water, and I kept counting the singles out. I kept going 1, 2, 1, 2, and I couldn't get it through my head that there was more than 2 bills out there. And finally, he had to grab the money out of my hands and pay for it. But, it being California, they didn't really care.
California, they don't care at all.
No, they didn't. But what we did when we were high was awesome. So our relationship sucked otherwise, but when we would get high, we would break out the modeling clay. It was called Sculpey.
Oh, Lord, that sounds like something you do high.
Yes, it was the best. We would spend hours creating these crazy Sculpey sculptures. I made a gigantic duck, and it had this really long beak, and I made it purple, and then I kind of like wove in a bunch of other colors for him. He was delightful. I was so proud of him, and then he broke in the oven. It was tragic.
Oh, it was a clay thing that turned
Yeah,
into pottery
the way
kind
that
of
it
thing.
works, yeah, it's like pottery. So you would mold it, and then you'd throw it in the oven, and then it would harden, and then you'd have a lovely little reminder of
It's
what
like a
you
shrinky
did.
dink without the shrink.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I see Creator Spotlight show, Cheech and Chong making a comeback. Oh, I wish. I love those guys.
Yeah, they're really due for a comeback. They really should have one. I don't know if it would really resonate with today's audience. I don't know
Well,
if that
considering
weed humor still plays. I don't
considering
know.
the popularity of like Harold and Kumar and what's his name, the big weed guy, the writer.
The weed guy
Yeah,
was a
what
writer.
he did, like This Is the End and Pineapple Express
Oh,
and
Seth
Seth
Rogen.
Rogen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean his movies are all based kind of off of weed culture
No,
too.
that's true. That's very true. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mike, for coming out here. Mike from the Creator Spotlight Show.
And
Awesome.
I see
you.
Video Collins show says he smoked his first joint at 10.
At 10.
10. Now, I got to know, how did you acquire a joint at 10? I mean, that's kind of, I can't imagine having access to something like
Well,
that.
he was at a strip club, and, when you're at a strip club
Oh,
at 10, that's
sure.
what you do.
I see Ginger says they don't get along anymore. Cheech and Chong aren't friends anymore.
Oh, that would be a bummer if that were
makes
true.
me sad.
Yeah.
Oh, I like them.
No, we all know that Chong went to jail for many years for
what? I don't remember.
He was selling paraphernalia
Oh, come on.
over the internet, which means he shipped it to other states.
And he violated state law.
Yes, he did.
I got it.
And it was bad. He spent quite a few years.
That is absurd. I mean, so many people are put in jail for just the dumbest little crimes ever.
I had the opportunity to talk to Chong's wife
Oh,
over
that's
the
right.
internet.
I forgot
Remember
about
when
that.
he got out of jail?
Yeah.
We were going to have him on the show.
Yeah, I wish that would have worked out. We were this close to having him on the show.
Right, but his timing and what he had going on, it just wasn't going to work out for that point. But maybe we should look at him again in the future.
I think we should. I'd really enjoy talking to him.
He's a super fun, nice guy.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I see Video Call-In Show says he is friends with older brothers. Or the strip club, you know.
There you go. It's always the older brother syndrome. Wasn't that the way?
Yeah,
That
well,
people got weed when
exactly.
you were younger?
That's how you got everything. The friend with an older brother or sister.
Pick me up a sixer, man.
That was how I found a python that I wrapped around myself at a party once. It was
Well, that doesn't sound like a weed story,
No,
but go on.
well, there was everybody there was high, and it was a high school party, and it was one of those like peer pressure things. You know, come on, you know, you got to get high with us, and I'm like, I just don't want to, so I drank an obscene amount of Budweiser, and my friend actually had this albino python named Butterbean. It was this cool snake. I mean, just the coolest thing ever. And I mean, it was really docile. And every time I was over there, you know, she'd pull it out and, you know, we'd all play with it and everything. So I thought, well, hell, you know, what's sexier than a chick with a snake? So I pulled this thing out of its tank while everybody's upstairs, you know, partying and getting high. And I draped it around my shoulders. And this is prior, you know, to Britney Spears and all that. I just thought it would be a cool rock and roll thing to do. And I, you know, announced myself into the room like, hey, y'all, you know, look at the girl with the snake. And Butterbean wasn't real thrilled with the crowd. So it actually started wrapping itself around me really tight. And all of my friends were so high, they thought it was hysterical. You know, they're like, oh, look at the snake, man. You know, I'm like, no, I'm dying here. It's crushing me. So a friend actually had to like help unwind the snake from me. And that is actually why I never really started smoking weed until I was older, because I thought, you know, it was just going to make me do silly things. And what I didn't realize was that the booze was making me do silly things.
Well, there's that too.
Oh, this is so good.
Nice. Hey, do you want to talk about Bourbon Soak Live?
Sure, yeah, let's do that. So what we're doing, y'all, is when you're here hanging out, snap a photo of yourself watching the show, and then post it on Twitter using the hashtag Bourbon Soaked Live. Now, we've gotten a couple of photos from folks and just want to share them with y'all. We've got Ginger and Will there doing their best to have at it with the camera and a couple of cocktails while watching.
And a hams. That's classic.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's good stuff right there. And we also have Melissa, who is always a drinking buddy of mine and enjoys having cocktails while watching the show. So y'all, I want to see you. Share your photos. Hashtag Bourbon Soaked Live on Twitter. Yay. Oh man, I am just hot as balls up here tonight.
Well, you're sick.
I am. I'm dying, y'all.
No one needs a whiny live stream.
I know. Nobody wants to hear me whine. They want to hear about my next experience with weed, I hope. And I got to say, there are some pretty big distinctions between the weed that I used to smoke when I lived in Los Angeles prior to 2005 and the weed that's available today. I don't know how this happens. You know, maybe it's just the prevalence of it, but weed today is so much more strong than I am used to. I'm used to just the stuff that they like pick off the side of the road. But this like treated stuff, I don't know how they do it, but it's insanity. And for whatever reason, it really affects me in an unpleasant way. Like I start with, the nice quiet high, and then it goes from that to insane heart palpitations. And then it goes to just being sick as a dog.
And you've called that Frankenweed?
I do. I call it Frankenweed because it's some sort of, to me, and I could be wrong, but it just seems like this mad scientist mashup of chemicals and plant, which I just don't trust. But the one experience that I had, which just kind of turned me off it a little bit, was with some friends of ours. They have a cabin out in the woods, and we visited their weed guy. And I said, look, I want something low key. something totally mellow that's not gonna, keep me awake, that's not gonna make me feel like I'm dying. Just give me the cool stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. This is what I give housewives, when they want to like chill out and watch their kids' soccer games. I'm like, okay, that sounds like that's just right for me. And I smoked it. And 3 hours later, we were at a restaurant. And I'm thinking, all right, I'm cool. But out of nowhere, I get hit with this wave of nausea. Just uncontrollable nausea. And there is a tsunami of barf just coming out of me like The Exorcist in the middle of a restaurant. Our friends are disgusted. The entire restaurant is disgusted, and I have no control over this.
It was a very unsexy moment,
It was
I'll say.
probably the worst moment I have ever experienced in front of my guy, and he's seen me in some pretty bad predicaments.
Nothing like that.
No, they had to drag me out of there, and then I'm still like heaving, so they pull me into the woods, and I am just I I don't even know how to go into it. It was the most disgusting experience of my life. I colored the woods with everything that I had eaten for the past 5 days.
But, we treated it like the Secret Service because we got you in the back of a Jeep and got you out of there in about like 30 seconds from when it happened.
Yes. And then I wound up destroying the side of the Jeep as well.
Oh, that's right.
I did, yeah.
I forgot about that.
It was horrible.
Yep. Can we, did we ever send a bottle of booze to
Oh,
that
we've
couple?
repaid that debt.
Okay.
Oh,
good.
yeah. Washed the car for them and,
I remember that.
compensated the restaurant. It was definitely not my finest moment. And it turned me off weed for a very, very, very long time. Until not that long ago, actually. I just got the itch. Like, I'm thinking, woo, maybe I want to try this again because our neighbors, a couple houses down from us, were smoking it. And it just smelled so good. Like you get that sense memory where you're like remembering all the good times that you've had with it. And I'm thinking about Sculpey, and I'm thinking about, just sitting back and giggling and laughing. And I thought, I want to try this out again. And I'm looking at my guy, and he's like, yeah, I don't smoke weed.
I don't care about weed.
And I'm like, well, I want to go get some. So he's like, well, fine, go get some. So I get up out of my chair on the driveway and I prance myself a couple doors down to our neighbors. And I'm like, hey guys, could I buy some of that off of you? And they look at me and they go, are you a cop? And this is how I realize that I am old. Because I have to take inventory of what I look like. And I'm wearing sunglasses. I look like a cop. I'm wearing like a little button-down thing. We'd been out to lunch earlier, so I'm wearing this little button-down top and, just like shorts. I look like a cop. And I go, no, guys, I promise.
Very undercover.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look like somebody who's going to try and buy weed off of her neighbors. And they're like, well, all right, and I gave them $40. They gave me enough for 2 joints. And brought it back to the driveway. And my guy's like, well, all right, have fun. And I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But for the first hour or so, I kept denying that I was high. And my guy is like, well, why don't we order pizza? And here's what I ordered on my pizza. Blue cheese, bacon, sausage, and ricotta cheese.
That's someone who's high. I'm sorry.
And if that is not high food, I don't know what would be. And on top of that, I had like 4 cannolis. So.
Well, to your credit, you didn't eat the 4 cannolis.
I ate 1.
Yeah.
I love a good cannoli. But it was delicious, and it was reassuring because I thought, well, okay, this is either, finally I found some good stuff, or, maybe it's just a fluke. So that's the last time I've had any weed, and I don't know, I'm kind of itching to try it again.
Really?
Maybe a little bit. I like the fact that, it just makes you feel, loosey-goosey.
Well, good news for you. Illinois is now officially
Indeed.
a state where you can actually not only just do the medicinal, but now it's recreational.
It is. This is exciting news. I didn't think Illinois would do it. I really didn't. They're a little conservative in that respect, but
Well, Illinois broke, so
yeah,
they
they
need
want
the
the money.
tax money.
They need the tax
So
money.
I don't blame them, and it was a good move on their part.
I see Patrick says get high and order pizza. Been there. Yeah, isn't that like just the trope of stoners? You know, you get high and you eat Cheetos and order pizza. But here's the other thing that I've seen every single stoner do, and I did it myself, is where you get that one stash of weed and you need to hide it, whether it's from your parents or from a roommate or, you know, anybody. And then 2 days later, you forget where you hid it.
I was even, or had done that in high school.
Did you really?
Yes, I totally lost about a dime bag of weed. I had actually stolen it from, I'll just call it my mother's boyfriend at the time,
Mm.
which is very weird. I took a little bit off the top of whatever he had, hid it in a place that, well, obviously
That you
it was
didn't even know.
so good of a hiding job that I couldn't remember where I hid it. Either that or he took it and I thought that I couldn't find it.
Well, I remember I had this apartment that had like those weird ceilings that you could kind of push up, and one of the like it had this like side storage area, and I thought, cool, I'll just hide it in there, and I never found it again. I mean, maybe there's like a very stoned rat running around Los Angeles now, or you know, maybe the cleaning man got it. I don't know, but I never saw that weed again, and I was so pissed.
Hey, did you see Giger's comment?
It reminds me of Half Baked, Jon Stewart. Have you had pizza on weed? You know, I got to say, I love all the stoner comedy. I do. And I kind of believe that until I just saw that new Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And prior to that movie, I'm convinced that Brad Pitt's best role was in True Romance, where he plays the stoner who just, you know, lays on the couch and he's like, don't condescend me, man.
I forgot he was in that movie even. You see Bashful's comment?
I threw a whole ounce away once. Did you deliberately throw it away or was it accidental?
Were the cops at the door?
Yeah,
and you had to flush
exactly. You know, it was mom knocking on the door.
No one throws an ounce away because they go, nah, I don't need it.
No. Me and my girlfriend Texas used to smoke weed all the time. Back here in Chicago, this was long before I met my guy. And she and I had a tradition where every December we would get together, get high, and make Christmas cookies. And it was the best thing to do. I mean, it's even better than making sculptures because I like the act of rolling out dough and cutting out the cookies. And then, of course, you've got all the frosting. We actually made a cookie in the shape of Hillary Clinton that year.
I'm disappointed in multiple ways. It's a joke.
Well, we ate it, so.
Yeah. See what Bashful says? She says, no,
I
got
got
high and way cleaning. So
Whoa.
she cleaned it. Oh,
You
it was an
cleaned it
accidental.
out.
Oof.
Oh, that's a bummer. That's a hardcore bummer.
Oh, that's so brutal.
I can't imagine doing that. Although, you know what? Oh, I dated this one guy. Whenever I talk about him, I refer to him as Jackass. And he once, and this is a little off topic, but sort of, he was just a huge drug abuser. I mean, he loved drugs. And we were at his house, and he had scored some coke. And he accidentally knocked it onto the carpeting. And he was so, like, in need of the cocaine that he actually sniffed it out of the fibers of the carpeting.
Are you kidding
Like
me?
an aardvark, yeah. I saw him down on his hands and knees with his face buried in the carpeting.
That is so sexy.
And his band still has videos out there right now, and they're still on the charts. Just saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's still guys out there that do that stuff, of course.
I know. You know, I mean, I love the recreational idea of drugs where, you know, you just enjoy yourself. But I just, people like that, you know.
Well, you knew that wasn't going to last.
I missed how old you were when you smoked your first. Video call and show. I was in my 20s and living in Los Angeles. I'd had tons of access to it prior to that, but it took dating a guy who was a regular smoker who just, you know, kind of said, well, here, give it a try and see how you like it.
I think the first time I tried weed was, I want to say it was roughly 15 or 16, right around that era.
Yeah, that's when I
Yeah.
started noticing all of my friends with it.
Right.
I
Yep.
think, and I don't know if that's still the case anymore. I don't really know what kids do these days for fun, but my high school, weed was everywhere. Like the second you hit sophomore into junior year, it was a thing.
When I was like 23, I was just kind of done with it. I was like, just not for me.
Well, yeah, that was kind of my thing. I mean, like everybody around me was smoking it. I was on tour with these bands and everything, and they had it. They had access to everything. And I think seeing them just abusing things so much kind of turned me off of it a little bit until I just got into a position where I thought, oh, hey, I can be comfortable and just enjoy myself versus acting like a jackass on it.
There you go. And you have Eileen, who just joined
Ah,
us.
well, hello, Eileen. How's it going tonight? We are sharing all of our crazy stories about weed and, by extension, other drugs. So it's a little bit of
Kind of
a
part and parcel.
an unconventional show tonight. We're getting a little wild and crazy here. And Video Colin says that's one of the reasons I stopped. And I get it. I get a lot of people who will assume that because, I have a cocktail here on the show that I am an alcoholic. And that really, really bugs me because there is a way to enjoy a cocktail.
Well, and alcoholics go to meetings. We don't go to meetings.
Of course, I don't like meetings. Unless it's, here on YouTube.
That's right.
No, there's a very huge difference between enjoying yourself and having a cocktail or enjoying, a joint versus abusing something and having an addiction and having, an uncontrollable urge. It's like food. It's like anything. I believe moderation is the key to enjoyment in life.
Absolutely.
So that's me on my soapbox for the night.
Yeah, there's your soapbox and down.
Says the girl who took 3 different cold tabs before she got on.
And doing bourbon on cold tabs. I didn't even think of that. Yeah,
115 proof.
I may have to carry you to bed tonight.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to sleeping tonight, y'all. And if I really seem a little out of sorts, it's because I've definitely got a little bit of a cold tonight. So you'll have to forgive me for being slow.
Hey, Ralph Morick is here in the
Well,
chat.
hello, Ralph. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are sharing our weed stories.
If anyone has any weed stories, feel free to put them in the chat and make sure that Juliette checks them out.
Yeah, and I think the funniest movie I've ever watched about weed would definitely be Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
That's where we differ.
And having White Castle here in the Midwest, I understand the craving that people get for it. Weed or otherwise. It's just this specific taste. And I love the idea of the quest. And it's got Doogie Howser in it, riding a unicorn. How can you go wrong with something like that?
Let me write down the 74 ways why I think why. But that'll
See,
be
I
later.
don't understand how you can't like that movie. It's hysterical. Now, I think they went downhill after that, but
I think when you look at the weed culture movies, I think you really have to kind of look at 3 different buckets, right? You have your Cheech and Chong, you have your Harold and Kumar, and then
Seth
you
Rogen.
have Seth Rogen in bits and pieces, right, that he does
Right.
for movies. And then you have like this one-off, like Half-Baked.
exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Something about it. I always get very giggly when I smoke weed. I get very silly until, the bad stuff kicks in and then my heart feels like it's going to explode, which I don't understand. Do any of you have that problem with new weed today? Please tell me if you do and what you do about it, because I find that certain strains just make my heart palpitate like crazy. And it lasts at least an hour or two. I mean, it's very unpleasant. I don't like it. And that's really what's turned me off weed for a long time. So if there is an alternative or a solution, I'd love to know what it is. And I see Ginger wants to know, what's your favorite weed movie then, David?
Oh, weed movie? Oh, that would absolutely be... It's a toss-up between Cheech and Chong's first movie or...
Up in Smoke?
Up in Smoke or Next Movie.
I love Next Movie. I know it's
I know.
a little out there. But Cheech and Chong next movie is hysterical. It's got Pee Wee Herman in it. It's got so many random cameos that you watch it and your head blows. I mean, it's crazy.
Paging Mr. Herman. Paging Mr. Herman.
I have to admit, I totally adore Pee Wee Herman. And he did a stage play version of Pee Wee's Playhouse. I would love to get high and watch that. I think that'd be fantastic. And Patrick says that's the artificial stuff that messes with your heart. So how do I know if it's artificial? I mean, the person that I had purchased it from is, a licensed weed guy. I mean, is he treating it with something? Is that what does it?
Does that make him a weedologist?
A weedologist.
What is the real term?
I don't know. I'm sure there's an official term, like the barista of weed.
Yeah, barista of weed.
Bashful of Roundtable says, yes, some strains make my anxiety go crazy. You just have to find the right one. And wow, that's a scary proposition, I enjoy it, but not enough to make the quest. And how do I ever, if I do find the one that I like, how do I find it again? There's no real consistency in growing.
Absolutely. You will be able to now with the legal dispensaries that are growing very specific strains.
Yeah.
That if anything, by the government regulation of this now, or even state regulation of this now, that you should be able to get a better level of consistency at the dispensaries.
I would hope so. Although, even so, and I was just about to say this, that Patrick says some of the new stuff is too strong, and that's my concern with a lot of it, especially when it comes to the edibles, because how do you know how much to eat? I mean, I've seen people offer me like pot gummy bears, and they say, just take a bite of the head.
Just bite the ear.
That makes no sense to me. I mean, I want to eat a whole gummy bear. I like gummy bears.
Yeah, well, you have to separate the bear from the weed.
I don't know. It's just a little frightening to me. I think, I just got to kind of temper it a little bit because
I have to agree with Jim, who just stated in the chat that the Stacy Keach iguana scene.
Oh my God!
Is
that is hysterical.
See, that turned me off to the movie at the end.
How could that? It's an iguana.
Well, I know it's just ridiculous, though.
Iguanas are hysterical.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jim on that one.
Container Man wants to know if weed is allowed in New Orleans.
Oh, I don't even know.
I don't think it is
we
yet.
didn't see anyone smoking weed in New Orleans when we were just there. We smelled it a lot.
We smelled a lot of it.
But no one openly smoked it, though.
I will have to look into that. I actually don't know.
Right.
Wow.
That's a great question.
That is a really good question. And Video Call-In Show says, you want edibles, visit the Bob Marley compound. Oh, you're funny. It's so funny how distinct that smell is. I notice it all the time whenever we're out. I'll tell my guy, I'm like, oh, I smell weed. And he's like, oh, please stop. Just stop with the weed.
Yeah, that's whenever I start to, start to look at.
I got that longing.
I gotta go get some.
He's like, just put it on hold.
And you know what? The funny thing is, and you, by telling all these stories, it makes it sound like you smoke a lot of weed. You don't. You may smoke maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah. At this point in my life, it's just a once or twice a year thing. Back when I was in my 20s and early 30s, it was definitely a bigger deal to me. But it was, in a weird way, it was easier to get, and I trusted it more then versus now. So I don't know exactly what that means.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
I think my friends all grew it, and I trusted them more than I do these dispensaries.
I don't know. I trust dispensaries more than I do trust friends.
Really?
Oh, definitely.
Well, that's true. We do have some friends who have very bad taste.
Well, it's not even the bad taste. It's what are they growing it in? Is it consistent?
True.
Did their cat pee in there? I just don't trust.
I guess that's a good point. I don't know. That was always my thing. I mean, I like the fact that it was so natural, but I guess you just can't trust anything. And Container Man, I don't trust you. I just don't.
I
Sorry.
swear I never inhaled, but if I did, it would really mellow me out. But I never inhaled.
You never inhaled. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Sure.
Well, Container Man is a truck driver, and I believe every word he says because he cannot smoke weed because he
that's
drives
true.
trucks.
That's true. And you know what? Here, so when I used to work in corporate communications, they used to drug test the hell out of me. It was like they knew my life. And I think at least once a quarter, I would have to submit to a drug test. And it would piss me off every time. And this one time, it was the most awkward experience ever. It was done in the office, and there were maybe 7 or 8 other people that had been called out to, submit their pee. And we all had to do it in the same bathroom because they needed these, consistent, situations so that they could maintain the integrity of the tests. And so I go in, and there's this nurse waiting there, and she, takes my bag and, checks my pockets. And she's like, okay, here's your cup. And I go into this stall, and it won't lock. So I'm like trying to pee, I'm trying to hold a cup, and I'm trying to keep the door closed at the same time because I'm already giving this woman my pee. I don't need her to see the rest of me at the same time. And I walked out of there, and I was so pissed, I actually deliberately spilled the pee on her.
Yeah, that was...
I'm like, oops.
You're lucky you actually got that job.
Well, I'm that good.
You're that good, or you're... or they didn't knock you for knocking pee on the poor woman.
I was already employed, and I positioned it as an accident.
You didn't have anything to lose.
No, exactly. Just oops, I tripped. That'll learn them.
So you're gonna end on a nice weed and pee story?
Yes, that is how we're closing this out. I peed on someone. I mean, not deliberately, but
no one lifted a leg.
No. It was not quite that disgusting. But I want to thank y'all for joining me tonight and putting up with me because I'm a little out of sorts from the cold. I will be back next Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time to hang out with y'all. And if there's something that you want to talk about, if you've got some great stories that you want to share, hit me up in the comments, and we can theme an entire show around that. And you know what, guys? I have loved chatting with you. Ginger, you are so awesome. Thank you for showing up to all these shows and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Same with Jenny and Container Man and Patrick. I see E-Waste Mike is here. Video call-in show. Who am I missing?
The Creator Spotlight. Jenny Marsad.
Yes.
And Eileen, and just amazing amount of people. Ralph Morek. So
yeah.
E-Waste Mike popping in at the last minute. Love it.
Y'all, tell your friends, let's make this a big deal. Every Monday night, let's get together and let's just share stories like we're hanging out, at somebody's house and, getting to know each other, because that's what I love doing.
And the incomparable Lou Rock just showed up.
The incomparable Lou Rock is here. Oh, dude, you missed it. I peed on someone.
Not live, mind you.
Well, anyway, y'all, thank you for being here, and I will chat with y'all next week. Cheers.